Yo, what up, folks? It's Isuma, and this weekend, like many others, I got a chance to play Chrono Odyssey's closed beta test. On the realness, I did not think I was going to receive access to the beta test because my wife hadn't received it either, and then one of my friends that actually does YouTube as well did receive one, but he put in his request the day before they started giving out access and got it directly after. So I was like, well, they might not be going that far back in the system, or my RNG just sucks. So I don't think I'm getting in. So I went to bed that night thinking I wasn't going to get in, only to find out the very next morning that me and my wife had gotten in. And so yeah, I hopped on and played a little bit using the Berserker, and I had fun. I enjoyed myself. I didn't push too far into the game because I have this thing where if I go too far when the game actually releases, I won't feel like doing it again. So I went ahead and just got to like level 5 or level 6 on the Berserker, went ahead and turned around and made a Ranger because I wanted to see what the Ranger played like, and then I got off the game. Now on both characters, I made it to the first Chrono boss you had to fight, the guy with the giant lightning spear, and yeah, that fight was interesting. It took me probably 2 tries on both classes, the Ranger and the Berserker, to understand how the dodges worked on both characters, because as you know, the Ranger has another dodge mechanic that you can use that also counts as an attack. And so it took me like 2 tries on the Berserker to get it to where I could no diff the boss with no health lost, and then 2 tries on the Ranger just because I was not familiar with how to incorporate the special attack, which was the second dodge mechanic, with his fighting style. And so once I got that down on the second try, I no diff the boss. I don't have footage for the Berserker because I was dumb and stopped recording, but I do have footage for the Ranger, which I'm going to play in another video, of course. Now my footage might not look all that great. My FPS was between 20 and 60 throughout most of this playthrough, on both the Berserker and the Ranger, depending on certain things happening in the game. There was a point where I was fighting and I was at 62. There was a point where I was fighting and I was at 20. I don't know what was causing the FPS drops. But my PC is a bit older. It is, like I said, like I got it during the beginning of the pandemic as a work from home PC, and I was let me just go ahead and get a gaming PC, just to go ahead and do that. And then we got my wife's PC probably like a year after that, and her PC had an upgraded graphics card and processor, so her PC might have played a little bit better. But my PC was doing the jumping thing between 20 and 60 FPS, but that didn't really bother me because I was still able to enjoy the game at a medium, and you know, just had fun with what I was doing. I'm not one of those FPS snobs that's like, I need my game to be at 144 FPS at all times. No, I don't do that. I don't really care as long as my stuff's not stuttering like it used to back when I played on a laptop, my old Toshiba from like back in the early 2000s. Now to clarify, my graphics card is an AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT, 12 gigabyte, and my processor is an AMD Ryzen 3700X 8-core processor. At the time, this was supposed to be a minimum gaming PC, more work PC, and I didn't think it would be able to run things like Throne of Liberty or this game, but it's been able to run these games without much issue. I pulled it up and played it during Siege one time with Throne of Liberty, and I didn't have any issues at all. And I think when I was recording this, I definitely had Google Chrome open, and we all know Google Chrome, whew, the amount of processing power Google Chrome takes makes your computer do some weird stuff. So that might have been why the FPS was dropping so sporadically when I was recording this video. Now, as for the difficulty in the combat, I won't say the combat is difficult because I'm used to playing games like this when it comes to MMOs. I played New World, I played Bless Unleashed being the more comparable of the two when it comes to how the combat was when it came to when playing an MMO and having to dodge your enemy's actual attacks. I feel like Bless Unleashed was a better comparison than to New World with how the combat was. Like I said, it only took me a few tries to get used to the flow of combat, and then I was shooting forward and being able to run against the boss that, you know, everybody was having issues with during their playthroughs and streams and stuff like that. Now, the general mobs, I just did die a lot because I wasn't really paying attention to my health. I was just like, I'm gonna respawn right up the hill. There's no real penalty for dying. You just kind of die, respawn, and come back and do the same thing all over again. So it's kind of like there was no real penalty, so why don't I just, you know, die, respawn, and get my health full up and then come back and gain EXP again? To me, it wasn't that big of a deal, but to others, it might have been. I'm not really sure. The one thing I wanted to do was get to level 10 and come back and fight the dragon, but I was like, no, because if I get to level 10, I'm probably gonna have to progress through more of the story and progress through more of the exploration to get to that level, which means I'm probably not gonna have interest in doing it when it does release later on, and I'm trying to keep that hype, trying to keep that that momentum for when the game does actually release, so I can go ahead and do those things when the game does come out later on in the year. I'm pretty sure we all know that wyvern that was in that area in the beginning, and everybody tried to solo it at one point. People probably took it down in their groups, but I tried to solo it on both the ranger and the berserker. I got it lower on the ranger than I did the berserker, and that was thanks to the poisons. I got it to like about 70% HP, and then I walked a little bit too far forward into the fire, and then the burn damage like took me out. And that was at like level 5, and both my weapons were level 5 in mastery as well. I didn't touch the swordsman class because I don't generally like to play swordsman classes. I don't know why, I just don't. And so because of that, I avoided it, and I don't usually play rangers either, but I was like, let me see how the range in this game is going to work, because I do plan on playing the sorceress when the sorceress comes out. That was probably going to be my main class between the sorceress or the berserker. More than likely it's going to be leaning towards the sorceress, because the berserker seems more like a tank with the great axe, and that's one thing I didn't want, was a tank great axe. The battle axe rather, and that's like that's the main thing I didn't want, and that's what they're putting it as a tank berserker. And I'm like, I wanted more of a rage damage dealing berserker with the battle axe versus the tank. So because it's more of a tank, I'm probably going to avoid it when it comes to the actual launch of the game, if the sorceress plays how I think the sorceress is going to play. But that's all here and there. My other fallback is going to be the paladin. If neither of them play how I think they're going to play, then I'm more than likely going to play the paladin, because I saw he had a jump skill, and I'm excited for that. I've seen the countless streams, I've seen the countless videos and think pieces about how people were mad that they didn't give us an updated version of the game, and the game feels bad and looks bad and this and that. Personally, I'm just going to wait till the game actually releases before I formulate a direct opinion, because playing on an old version does not give me all of the insight I need to make a decision. After playing for the about 6 hours I played, I would definitely say I'm still hyped for this game, even though I didn't do as much as other people. I saw people got to like level 15, some got to level 19. I only got to, like I said, level 6 or 5 or 6 on both characters, and I just kind of went around and like explored and had fun and looked at the scenery and just kind of saw what the mobs were, where the bosses were, just to have an idea on how the game's progress is going to go, as well as trying to find some of those bosses that I saw other people fight during their videos. I don't think this game will be the Throne of Liberty killer that everyone is calling it to be, but I think it will subtract from Throne of Liberty's player base because of the game's difficulty, as well as the play style of the characters in the game. How PvP is set up to be open world, where you can flag in PvP wherever you want as long as other people are flagged. I feel like people are going to enjoy a lot more aspects of this game more than they do Throne of Liberty, whereas Throne of Liberty is meant to be a mass PvP rock paper scissors style game. This game is going to be more of your own skill versus really just bolstering your numbers and kind of beating the other person because your stats are better than their stats. I feel like PvP in this game is going to be very heavily skill based, and the people that are coming from Throne of Liberty that are saying Throne of Liberty is going to remain their game are not ready for a skill based game like how this is going to be set up to be. I've watched a few players PvP videos on how PvP works, and seen them PvP using the Chrono Detector abilities that they were able to use, and the time stop and the time reverse. And like I said, some people aren't going to be ready for that. Like, they're not ready for the interchangeable skills that you're going to be able to do while PvPing. They're not ready for the shift in combat just from the click of a button that's going to make it to where you were once winning to now you are on the downside of the battle. People aren't ready to play a third-person shooter while playing an MMO, because that's exactly what it's going to be when you're playing with a bow or probably the sorceress. You're going to be playing a third-person shooter while playing an MMO, because yes, there are headshots in the game, and headshots do calculate as more damage. As for the bossing aspect, that's going to take a whole nother level of skill, because I've seen players like try to fight the first lightning boss, the lightning spirit boss, and just rage quit after taking so many losses to that boss without actually sitting there trying to learn the boss's actual frames and how the boss is going to collide with the map and where the follow-up attacks are going to go. Now, I don't know if they were doing it just for sensationalism or if they were actually having trouble fighting those bosses, but it was hilarious to watch some of them fight and flail around because they couldn't actually figure out how to fight the very first big boss of the game. And I saw one player go back a lot of levels later, because you're the first time you fight the boss, you're about level 5, level 6. They went back at like level 11 and just punished the boss for beating them up a few times beforehand. And I was like, wow, this is, I guess, one way to play the game. Like, I'm not gonna judge you for, you know, playing how you play, but that's crazy. I feel like a lot of people are gonna shy away from Chrono Odyssey though, for all the reasons I said before, because it's gonna take a lot more skill to play this game than it would to be playing a regular MMORPG, where you just kind of go in and press your buttons and win, because you have higher stats. That and the buy to play price tag that's going to keep a lot of people out of this game sphere, which is kind of a plus and minus, because like, you don't want the free to play casuals that come in and complain about the game being bad just because, you know, they're casuals and don't want to learn how to actually play the game for what it is. They're just going to complain about how the mechanics of the game aren't meant for them, and they think the mechanics should change. You don't want those guys in the game. But at the same time, you want those people that can't afford the game that do want to play a game like this to play the game, so they can enjoy something that's different and new and have a broader experience in what gaming could be. Like I said, I'm not going to place my judgment on the graphics or the performance of the game based on this test, because they did say that this test was the older version of the game. So I'll give them another test or two to prove, you know, how the performance of the game is going to go, especially when it comes to console, because the game is supposed to be better optimized for console, which is a major plus for me because I'm a console player. And that honestly makes all the difference on how I handle this game going forward. But that's pretty much it for this video. I just want to go ahead and talk about those things, about how I had my interaction with Chrono Odyssey during the beta. The beta's over now, sadly, because I thought we had one more day, but I misread the time, or rather I misread the date, thinking the time would correlate to the next date. But I guess that's what it is. But thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. It's been forever, and peace out.